Hello and welcome back to Rocket Pod. In today's show, we're joined by Maxwell Nee. Max is a successful entrepreneur. He was written up in Forbes and Wealth Insider for building a multi-award-winning and multi-million-pound online education company, High Performing Coach. He's also the managing partner for O&O, Wine and Whiskey Investment Fund, and has co-founded the Australian Family Office Association, connecting high net worth families with each other and an ecosystem of various different investments. We're delighted to have Max on the show. Love his growth mindset and looking forward to delving into what makes Max tick. Welcome, Max. How are you doing this morning?
Yeah, really good, mates. Thank you for having me, James.
You're welcome. And I think I will cover this on the intro, but so Max is the founder or co-founder of the Australian Family Office Association, has built multi-million pound coaching business. I think the High Performance Coach was one of the businesses you built in your career, and you're also the managing partner of O&O Office and Whiskey Club or association. So perhaps we can dig into that later. But I think before we dig in, why don't we really curious to know about your background, Max, where you grew up, if there was anyone that made a particular impact on your life as a young man or child even, and perhaps talk about your first entrepreneurial experience or endeavor. That would be fantastic. So take us right back and then we'll kind of bring it forward to present day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, appreciate that. So where do I start?
Where do you start?
Yeah. So, most people have read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My dad was poor dad. He is poor dad. But funnily enough, his dad, so my grandfather, is rich dad. So my dad, is terrible with money, and basically the wealth evaporated with my dad. So I had to start again. Which in pretty much every single way I'm really grateful for, because I just imagine if everything was sort of given to me, then I wouldn't have the sharp teeth, the tough skin and all that sort of stuff compared to when you earn something. So, but yeah, it was a very interesting experience to see, like all of these mistakes, and then just think to myself, wow, I don't want to make these mistakes. Like I want to try really hard to build something that I want and to not make those mistakes. And just to share, so the mistakes happened in my family by way of a restaurant. So, my dad had owned and managed a restaurant, which basically like lost money for like 20 years. Like just restaurants aren't easy, for anyone listening. Anyone think about a restaurant or anything, I've got a very, very strong views of a restaurant. If you want someone to red team your business plan for a restaurant, I will happily do that. I'll rip that apart.
Great.
Any day of the week. So then I went into banking, and my dad always said to me, why don't you want to take the restaurant? I said, no one wants the restaurant. Like, just keep that away from me. And now the restaurant's bankrupt, so like, I saw the whole thing, I saw it, be good at the beginning, have ups and downs, saw it not being able to pivot. I saw it, lose money. I saw, good money going after bad to try to resuscitate the thing, and then now it's bankrupt. So I've seen the whole worst case scenario. So I'm very, very aware, very entrenched. I've lived through it, as a child going through that, right? So then I went to banking, because I had interest in finance, and I always had an interest in business and things like that. I didn't quite know. Ended up in banking, and then ended up hating it because after the GFC, about almost 10 years later, Australia went through its regulatory sweep on the back end of the global financial crisis, 2008, which is called the Royal Commission. So basically, this is why I left. I had 70-80% of my bonus taken away from me that year because I didn't attach a spreadsheet to a file. Not because the spreadsheet wasn't done, but because I didn't attach it. So there was just ridiculous amounts of like just stupid red tape, stupid things I thought, wow, this isn't for me. I'm a big picture guy, like most entrepreneurs, and I was being patient, learning what I need to learn because I thought, being learning the finer details and how to be a bit more steady-handed in how I do things would be good for me. So then I left, and then you mentioned that I co-founded High Performing Coach. I want to really, really underline that I did that with a team. Business is a team sport, like what you might hear a lot of other people say. And we reached like £1 million very quickly, in like less than 2 years, and that is not possible without a team. Unless you're in some ridiculous industry or niche, like starting WhatsApp or starting Instagram or something like that. It's just not possible without a team. So when I look to build a business or look to do anything, instead of looking at, how do I do it? I've learned to ask myself the question, who can I do it with? Because then it's like, okay, that just gives you a different perspective, right? And if you can't find anyone to do it with, then you just got to be really honest with yourself and really know that it's going to be slow. It's going to be painful. You're going to have all the pressure on your shoulders. You're going to have cash flow things. You're going to have months where, and I've had this, you're going to have months where your rent is £1,000 a month and you've earned £1,200 that month, like you're going to have that. And I did all that, in my first year of entrepreneurship. And I loved it. I love difficulty because I want to experience things. Probably love it a little bit too much. But basically, what happened was in my first year, I slept on couches, stayed at friends' places. I sold like my Bose Bluetooth speakers to help pay for rent. I had a belt that I bought from Hermes when I liked that kind of stuff, and I sold that as well to pay for rent. And then I went to I was living in Toronto at the time in Canada. And I went to the supermarket, which is like the cheapest supermarket you find. I think it's called No Frills. So that gives you an idea how much. It's like the Ryanair. It's like the Ryanair of supermarkets, right? And I would go there and basically, I'm pretty good at numbers, and mathematically work out, okay, look, if I buy this bag of mincemeat, per 100 grams, am I getting more mincemeat compared to the next bag? And I'll just buy the cheapest amount of food per 100 grams because I knew that all that mattered was saving money. So I was just living on credit cards and stuff, and then I had to work part-time a little bit, worked at Lululemon part-time. This shirt's Lululemon. I love Lululemon.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. and I went through all the pain. But at the same time, I thought to myself, I just left a 6-figure job, to do all this. But I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier because I owned my time. I owned my freedom. I could just flick the switch any day and do whatever I wanted, even though I didn't have a lot of choice, so to speak, because I didn't have, a wallet that could, buy a ticket to Santorini or whatever. And I went through that for about a year, and then I met my business partners, and we said, hey, let's team up. And that's when things started to pop off. We started we had probably like 4, 5, 6, 7, probably like around up to 7 really tough months altogether. 3 of us, one living in Spain, one living in the UK, one living in Australia, and between the 3 of us, we'd split like £3,000.
Brilliant.
That's all that came in, and we were like, it's like the Airbnb story. Have you heard that story? It's the guys, just slept on their couch, just like, how do we get this thing to work? And just like rent's due and bills are like not being paid, like back to back. Like it wasn't that bad, but the back was against the wall, 100%.
Yeah, didn't the Airbnb guys start a cereal? Wasn't it McCain? Was that a Barmaros and McCaino's or something? They actually created a cereal.
Yeah.
Was that Airbnb or was that Uber? I think it was Airbnb. I'm pretty sure. It was 5 years of a complete radical business model change just to survive. It's that survival. Is that it? Yeah, and I guess human beings are kind of designed to struggle and survive. And I think that's one of the
I
Probably
don't think so. I
isn't it?
wouldn't want to say that. I wouldn't want to put that out to
Yeah.
our young listeners. Like looking back, yeah, of course, the smart, mature way to do it would have been to save some money, to do
Hmm.
this, do that, But at the same time, something happens energetically when you go all in on something, you know, and you will have to be all in on something. If you look at anyone in the world, like, Kobe Bryant, Muhammad Ali or anyone or Steve Jobs, if you ever ask them, hey, what's your plan B? They would say, what's that? And I really believe in that
Okay,
because
that's interesting. I like that.
that's how you get the best out of me, right? And that's how I've learned to get the best out of me, no matter how stressful, how chaotic it is. But it's not for everyone. Some personality types, have a fundamental need for stability and safety and things like that. I totally
Yeah,
respect that.
yeah, me too.
But emotionally and mentally, you do have to be all in. Doesn't mean your wallet has to be all in, but emotionally and mentally, you got to be all in.
Yeah. Well, maybe another way to look at because I actually like that. I've never heard of there's no plan B before. So I love that. It's a real kind of gold nugget. It might be, am I going to die if this fails? It's like, if the answer is no, then, you're okay. It's like I mean, again, people's risk
Yeah, yeah.
tolerances are different and it's not, I mean, entrepreneurship
But,
is
but
not for everybody.
yeah, can I point to something? So even that
Yeah.
question, am I going to die if this fails? Even that is creating a plan B.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
You know,
Okay.
so I was
Hmm.
listening to I think a podcast from Will Smith. And he's a big advocate of, look, I'm world class at one thing, and that's all I want to do, which is acting. And he said on the podcast, he said, look, if there's two people running on a treadmill and I'm one of them, and the goal is to run as long as possible, either the other person's getting off first or I'm gonna die first. Right. So that's how he fits, and that's a very dramatic example.
Yeah.
But like I believe in that mindset. Like I believe like that they don't because the question of am I going to die if this doesn't work? Of course the answer is no. But if you let your brain sort of
Hmm.
sit back into that comfort seat, then it takes away your power from being all in. I'm a very extreme person. I'm a very extreme passionate person.
Yeah.
So everyone has to
Yeah.
think like me. But it's like these little 1%, I believe, that help to give you more oomph.
Yeah, it's the little the little choices and again this is an agreement with yourself, isn't it? I think actually I got the thread from one of the old Tim Ferriss's books, The 4 Hour Work Week, when it's basically, if I don't respond to this email, and in his context actually it was like, no one's going to die if I don't respond. So and he kind of trained people around him. So he answered emails at 4 o'clock on on a Wednesday afternoon. So he trained. It's not possible in a lot of jobs when everyone expects to be available 24/7, but I think so anyway, I just wondered where that thought came from. So it was a bit out of context really, but no, it's you're basically all in. It's like there's no just you got to commit, like you said, 110% to make something work.
Yeah, and when
Yeah.
I say make something work, and I'm very aware of this as well, because I have sort of philosophical arguments about this with a lot of people. When I say make something work, I mean, to be the best at something, because in my mind, it's just not worth it.
Hmm.
Like, if you're not going to do something to be the best, then who cares? I'm just that type of person. And I get that a lot of people have a very happy life dabbling. And dabbling is like, brings up happiness. For example, I've never taken up a sport because I'm like, oh, well, what's the point? What's the point if there's no clear goal? Like the clear goal is going to be, to win something or to, I don't know, go to the Olympics or whatever. But some people love to take up a sport just to get fit, and that's great. And I take up a sport. If I did, it'd be like, yeah, let's see, let's really challenge ourselves and see like how I want to be mentally stimulated. Like I want to sort of plug the juice into my brain and see how fast the car can go, type of thing. So that's what I believe in.
So would you describe yourself as an all or nothing kind of guy?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, that's probably an obvious question.
Yeah, obviously.
So, yeah, that's great. what's your thought juggling lots of different priorities?
Ooh.
Or it could be multiple projects, because I've got a thought on this,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we're conditioned. Well, I mean, okay, maybe I'll speak from my experience. We're conditioned to, if you've got to do one thing, and juggling, it's like you're too distracted and you'll get nowhere. But there's a different, yeah. So what's your thoughts on juggling, many different priorities? Bearing in mind, you just mentioned that you're 100% into anything that you do.
Yeah, yeah. So this is how I see it. Because look, I gotta be careful what I say here. So look, I want to put a disclaimer because I want to be very responsible to the listeners.
Mhm.
If it's your first business, try to focus, try to do just one thing, because there's a lot to learn, and you should fall in love with learning it. I guess that's probably my superpower. I can fall in love with learning anything, especially if I choose to. So then everything just becomes easy, you know. But to answer your question about juggling, when I juggle stuff, I see it as just project management. For example, when a guy comes in, because I used to when I worked in banking, I used to fund property developments, like guys would build, 20-story towers, $100 million, all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
And I would see the way the project managers think, So the way they think is that, look, if the cement isn't in the ground by Wednesday, then the carpet can't go in by Friday. Then something can't happen by Monday. Then everything is starts falling apart. It's like a house of cards, right? Does that make sense? Like if the plumbing doesn't
Mhm.
go in by
Yeah.
Tuesday, then the walls can't go in by Thursday. So that's how I think about it. I don't see it as I'm juggling, a sword and a knife and an axe and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
I see it as it's a perfect harmony of execution, and
Yes.
right now the needle mover is if I do this by Monday, then it'll move to its potential to 3x the next step by Thursday, and then that's the biggest yield, leverage that I can create, and out of all the businesses that I'm managing, this is the one. This is the one. Or if I plant this seed today, I think of it as like planting seeds. If I plant
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
seed today, then but if I'm late by planting this seed, then I failed. So project manager doesn't see it as competing interests. They see it as organization of planting seeds, so that all the sprouts come out when you want them to come out. So that's how I
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah, and the key word you mentioned was execution. So as long as you are, and actually, if you look at, if you slow down someone juggling, they're throwing a ball up and they're catching it. So as long as that full cycle and the ball is caught, then that project is done. And as your analogy just
Yeah,
pointed out, the concrete and the carpets are two very different activities.
yeah,
And actually, they could be two very different businesses.
yeah,
But like you said, if they don't happen when they're supposed to, then it has a knock-on effect.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but in order to take something from A to B, there needs to be, well, you need to have the vision to where you want it to go, and then
Yeah.
have the wherewithal to execute upon that. So I like that. I like that. And actually, that's kind of that is, that's
It's,
kind of
it, it,
my
it,
way of looking
it's,
at it
how,
too.
it's how we justify getting distracted
Yeah,
and opening up a million
yeah,
businesses. No, I'm
yeah,
joking. It
yeah.
can be done, like look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk has like a million, 100 million businesses. He can't have any more businesses that are all changing the world. That they're all just as important. Like it's ridiculous, right? But
Yeah.
but he finds a way to do them because he doesn't see them as competing with each other. He sees them as like, you know, almost like birds flying together in like a flock, and they just they're sort of all driving humanity towards, I don't know, a better humanity.
Well, actually, I think one of his key goals that I understand is to preserve consciousness. So, hence his desire to actually inhabit Mars. And all his businesses are, pointing towards that kind of preserving consciousness, which is it's a big hairy ass goal, isn't it? Let's
Yeah,
face it.
yeah. So
And
he
you've
sees
got to
it.
have all these moving parts.
Yeah, so he sees it as one business. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
he sees it as like a school of fish swimming together instead of like two fighting fish fighting, which one's going to win. He sees it as working together.
So I've just quickly share. So I was recommended a book a couple of weeks ago called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. Have you read that?
No,
I think I forget the name. You know what? Author's name escapes me. Perhaps I'll put it in the notes at the end. And it basically helps the reader like debunk the bullshit rules that we're taught when we're kids. And you know, the juggling myth is one that potentially I always thought that, you know, being an entrepreneur meant really kind of high stress, and yes, there are stressful times, but actually the most successful people I've ever met kind of roll with it, and they're just masters of their own destiny, really. And it's actually less stressful because they're generally get to a point where, you know, some of the financial worries go away, not always, but yeah, it's just kind of been inspiring me to actually question some of the rules that we think to be true in our mental framework or culturescape, but actually are not true. And it's just a kind of just busting the myths, I guess.
Yeah, it's I think what that comes down to is that it's attitude. You know, it's like, because I know people with tons of money that are stressed. So it's not about the money; it's about the attitude. I know people. You know, I see that there's this guy that I talk about when I used to do coaching. So in Brisbane, where I'm from in Australia, there's this one guy. He's homeless, and he has like a big sort of like curly hair. He hasn't cut his hair in how many years, you know. And he, you know, smells like urine, like, you know, real homeless guy. Has like gloves with like holes in the pockets and stuff, like, you know, exactly what you imagine when you picture a homeless person. And but his shoes, he always has fluorescent yellow, pink, or orange brand new Nike shoes from Foot Locker. And he's the most interesting guy, and he's extremely happy. And my mom used to work at the bank. We all work at the bank. My mom used to work at the bank that served him, and everyone hated serving him because, you know, he smells. But my mom would serve him because she's a lovely person, and she's like, you know, he's a customer as well. And he has one of those books, like it's called a pass book. It's like a really old, you know, generally only people over like 70 or 80 still have them because they stopped making them. And it's a book that prints, you know, it's like a live checkbook that prints the and he has $48,000 in his account because he has a relative that died and sent him an inheritance. But he doesn't find happiness in things, except for his shoes. So he's got more money than most people, but he chooses to live homeless because he's happy living homeless. So, you know, when you look at that guy, you're like, wow, that is abundance. You know, that is mental stability, mental security, self-security, abundance. You know, he's got money, but he's like, yeah, I don't need things. Like, I'll sleep at the park, you know, and he's so happy. Every time you talk to him, he's the most lovely person. He's like, and every time he sees my mom, he takes money out of the bank. He's like, thank you so much. And he like sort of like bows as he shakes her hand and stuff. And then my mom washes her hand, right? But it's you know, like stress, happiness, or whatever, it's a choice. It really is a choice.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. I think having an attitude, the right attitude, and maybe it's a growth mindset as well. Because I'm speaking from someone that actually grew up with quite a fixed mindset. And actually, but I've developed a growth mindset, and I'm still working through it. A lot of the things that I thought to be true, you know, I'm kind of unraveling that, you know, on my life's journey. But you know, yeah, I guess it depends on on that mindset, on that attitude. And I do believe in the compound effect. So every incremental, you know, change, you know, positive change you can make, whether it's diet or whether it's habits, you know, work habits or, you know, relationships, they all add up, and you can keep adding to them as you go through life. But to touch on the point you made earlier, as far as if you want to, you know, achieve big things, then, you know, it's like, who do you do it with? I like that. That's a really nice. So can you talk about the types of, you know, I mean, I know you've had a lot of experience coaching over the years. What makes talk about mindset? What does make a successful coach or entrepreneur, or even business partner from your experience? What do you look for?
Yeah, if you had asked me before I started my own business, I would have said something like, yeah, take risks. Because at that point in time, business looked very risky to me. You know, if you had asked me as I was building my business, started to have success, I would have said, you know, a love for sales. But if you ask me now, I would say self-awareness, because like I've seen so many businesses come and go and come and go. And I'm adamant that the number one cause why a business doesn't succeed, or that it doesn't grow, doesn't move forward, or gets stuck at a certain place, is simply just like the root, like the seed. Like there's branches that come out of the tree, right? All the problems, like not enough money, not enough whatever. But right, the seed down at the bottom to solve all of that is like the bottleneck, that the cork that's blocking the growth is lack of self-awareness. So let me see if I can give you an example. So my dad, right? My dad, perfect example. Business, it did well for the first almost 20 years. He had like a 7 Series BMW and all that sort of stuff. Like he bought all these liabilities, basically, when the business was doing well. And then when it was doing bad, I borrowed more money. So made more liabilities. He's a perfect client for a bank. And, yeah, and we have a laugh. We have a good laugh now, so I can make fun of him publicly. I love my dad. By the way, I love my dad. Okay.
So he must be a great guy if
yeah. And it was so obvious. Like when the business was doing well, he felt great, money's in the bank and blah 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 blah. But when it was doing bad, like he wanted to fix it for the wrong reasons. He actually didn't even want to fix it to get money in the bank. He wanted to fix it because, like, when the business is doing well, he felt important, So it actually had nothing to do with serving customers or like making money or, contributing to the economy or making good food or passion. Like he doesn't actually care about that. Like when you get down to the core, is actually, like the restaurant is my stage, and my stage is getting taken away from me. And that is, was sort of like never resolved. So then he kept like chasing that, because I told him, many years ago, I said, Dad, the restaurant's almost unsavable by this point. We need to, and 20 years from now, you're going to wish that you had stopped now. And, we need to pivot, like we need to sort something out. But he wasn't ready to hear it yet. So then he went on another 10 years. Just another really painful 10 years. And then now he's sort of grown out of that. Guess what? He's, like the restaurant's going under, and it's all public, restaurant's going under. And he is, was asked to be a restaurant manager from someone else. So he's become an employee. Like, can you imagine that? 40 years, almost 40 years, being an entrepreneur and then being an employee again. But he's so happy, he's so happy because
all that stress, all that burden's been taken away.
Not just that, like, yes, he's actually earning money now instead of owing people money, right? But he gets to scratch the same itch. He gets to manage that restaurant, he gets to be a stage, and that's actually all he wanted. Right, all he wanted was that stage to be like the guy comes in, hey, have a seat, hey, thank you for coming back, here's a beer. Like, he likes making people feel good, likes taking care of people, making people feel good. That's a superpower, and that was taken away from him when he's stressing about the restaurant, stressing about money. But he didn't have self-awareness that was all that he needed. So sometimes all that you need in life to be happy isn't actually what entrepreneurship gives you. So and when people force it, that's what really hurts and breaks and creates debt and things like that, right? Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. I think it's also, I think it's your comment about self-awareness, I think, is a really key part. So being present, but also knowing what you want, and maybe knowing what your superpowers might be. Your authentic self. Because and it might be that someone close to you can help you with it. But if you know what you want, and sometimes this takes years, doesn't it, to figure out what you want, but to simplify it, if you know what you want, then you can actually achieve that. And entrepreneurship is certainly not for everybody. And then if you do want to do something entrepreneurial, then maybe you're the ideas person. Maybe you need someone to help you with the execution. Because some people get energized by looking at a spreadsheet. But if you don't know what you want, then you're never going to get there. And let's face it, we live in quite a superficial world, and a lot of us, we've all done it. I've done it. You kind of pretend to be someone we're not, when actually you're better off just being who you are, because you'll attract the right things into your life.
Yeah. And I'll give a personal example. I've always wanted to rule the world, and like when I went to banking, I said, hey, look, I want to be CEO. Like always sort of the biggest picture, the biggest goal chaser. And yeah, I know exactly how everyone listening to this podcast feels. You see a Forbes article that says, hey, look, the 21-year-old founder of Snapchat, just sold his interests at $1 billion. And the first thing that you think automatically is, well, I'm 20, how come I haven't done that? And that is the wrong reason to get into entrepreneurship, first of all, for a million reasons. Not to mention it's because you're comparing it to something it's not true to you or whatever. But yeah, I used to feel a lot of what's the word? It's not resentment, but a lot of like, oh, what's wrong with me, or like jealousy or whatever. Oh, I wanted that. And then every time I tried to chase that, big like tech exit or whatever, it just never worked, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work if it's not true and real, and you could throw money at it and you might get lucky. Some people get lucky. Some people right place, right time, but that's like winning the lottery. That's not really sort of living in your magic, in your most authentic sort of magic. So I had a long look at myself last year. Last year was a bit like an exorcism. It was an exorcism of, okay, look, what do I really love? What do I not love? Because, I was doing a lot of things I didn't love. And I was like, what's the point? Honestly, if I do things I don't love, then I might as well be back in banking, because at least then I have job security.
And you're making money. Just attach that spreadsheet next time.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to attach spreadsheet, honestly.
You're paid.
Yeah. And then now I'm thinking, okay, look, here's one of my 3 values. What are my top values? I think everyone that is alluded to entrepreneurship has these similar values. So let's say top 5. So first one is freedom. That ultimately that's the underground reason why you want to be an entrepreneur. It's like to have more freedom to either do the work you want, get paid what you want, fly to where you want, work as little as what you want, what you want. It's freedom in there somewhere, right?
That's a big one, and that is a big one. Yeah.
And I see a few Instagram posts now saying that freedom is the ultimate like flex. It used to be Rolexes and cars. Now it's like, hey, look, I could not work for longer than you, and I love that. That's sexy. Sell me that. Sell me how long I could do what I want for. That's cool. Yeah,
that is cool. I like that. That's cool. That's got a cool factor. I like that.
Yeah. It makes money. It makes chasing money cool, because money is just a representative of freedom, right? And then number 2 is relationships. So it's like I made a decision a while ago that I don't want to work with anyone, because people do this thing where they tolerate what they don't like in a workplace because it earns them money, and like they tolerate a boss they don't like, things they don't agree with, and they just swallow it. It might be really small, but I believe that if you keep swallowing something every day, it vomits out eventually. You hit a wall, you crash, you burn out, you get sick, and it looks like you got sick, but no, you were compromising your values for 5 years, and then it's caught up with you, right? So I only want clients who I would get brunch with on the weekend. That's my criteria. If I wouldn't get brunch with you on the weekend, then we can't work together.
Yeah, and I like it.
And that's happiness. That's real happiness to me. And I love clients who I want to invest more time in, like people that are interesting. James, we've always had a connection. I've always found you interesting. And I was like, like I would get coffee and then another coffee with you, like I want to invest more, right?
Definitely that fun piece. Go where
Yeah.
you're celebrated. My grandmother used to say, "Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated."
Yeah.
That's I love that, and you know, I miss her. I mean, she died 20 years ago, but that was a bit of wisdom that has stuck with me. But it goes again. It's like not all clients are equal, and you know, we both know that, you know, 80% of the value is normally from 20% of your clients anyway. So, you know, can you fire because 80% of your problems comes from 20%. So fire those babies. Sorry, I just derailed your conversation.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
it's just and because life's too short, isn't it? Life is too short.
It's way too short. You know,
No.
it's like having that friend that's annoying, or that you don't get along with, but then you feel obligated to invite them to your
Yeah.
birthday. You know,
Yeah,
stop
you
doing
put up
that.
with it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
stop doing it. Stop.
stop doing that, you
Yeah.
know, because
Yeah.
I tell you what happens is that when you set that relationship free to where it's naturally pulling anyway, you end up happier and they end up happier, you know, because if you didn't want them there, I can tell you 100% of the time they actually didn't want to be there either. And
Yeah.
you're tethered by this, you know, this string and a cup of like obligation that is just so stupid, you know. So I've really learned that, and I keep learning that. And the third one would be experiences, you know. So yeah, I used to collect things, you know, Louis Vuitton and all that sort of stuff. You know, you see it and you're like, oh yeah, I want that. It's gonna make me feel important. It's gonna make me feel cool and whatever. And then you realize how empty it is. And then eventually, you know, you'll look back and think to yourself, you know, I could have done a lot with that money. You know, but I was 18, 19, earning my own money for the first time. Everyone goes through it, right?
Yeah. And that's okay. If you like nice things and you got money,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's okay to spend money. I mean, that's what money's for, but as long as it doesn't own you, right?
Yeah, as long as it doesn't own you, you know. But if it makes you happy, like look, don't get me wrong, I will spend $10,000 on a suit because I love the craftsmanship. I love the craftsmanship. You know, I enjoy it. It becomes an experience for me. You know, so yeah, you know. And whenever I buy a MacBook, I buy the most expensive one because I like having the best one. You know, and
Yeah.
it helps me. You know, so like I'm not digging it down, but I've realigned, I've recalibrated myself, right? So always, you know,
Yeah.
always got to do that. So the third one is experiences, and here's an example of an experience, right? I would never, ever, ever, ever buy a Lamborghini because I have no desire to buy one or whatever. But would I love to rent one for 6 months? Of course, of course,
I
you
love
know,
it.
if you give it to me at a great price, of course. Like, yeah, I want to be that guy that rips around Lamborghini, getting speeding tickets. You know, I want to experience that. You know, get out of my system, and then and I know I'll lose interest in it. You know.
Yeah.
When I would buy,
but would you rent it? Would you buy one and rent one though? But then again, it'd probably be thrashed, wouldn't it? Actually, if you bought a Lamborghini and rented it out, it probably would be ruined.
yeah, exactly. No, I would just rent one. It's just easier. There's no, you know, $100,000 deposit or anything. Like I spent 50K renting it for, you know, for 5 months or whatever. Yeah, I would really enjoy that. I would really enjoy that. And then I'd get over it. And then, yeah, because I just keep learning, you know, these things, if they're not like a suit or whatever, or what I really value, I get over them. And then I'm like, oh, you know, that was stupid, right? Yeah. What would the next one be? The next value.
So we've had freedom, number one, relationships, number two, number three was choosing who you're spending time with. What would you call it?
Experiences.
Experiences, number three.
Yes, number four, right? This is very common for entrepreneurs. Growth. You know, I really value growth. You know, like if I'm sitting in the same spot, this is also why I left my corporate job because I wasn't growing. You know, if I'm sitting in the same spot, I get really frustrated, really, really annoyed and agitated. And I believe that every entrepreneur has that itch for growth. You know, here's how much I love growth. So when I realized that I wasn't growing in my last job and I hadn't grown for about a year or so, like I was just, you know, capped out and boring to me. I quit my job, broke up with my girlfriend. We broke up with each other. It was mutual, wasn't working. And then I moved to Canada because I wanted to pick a place that I didn't know anyone. The climate was different, completely opposite to Australia. I had no friends, no family, no place to stay, no job. Like I wanted to be as uncomfortable as possible because that's where the growth happens. So I threw myself into that. And that happened. But I really, really understand that some people they can't do that because they might have growth as like number five, but stability is, or security or something is like number two, so if they do become an entrepreneur, they need they need to ease into it, they're not an all in or all out person like me and willing to take risks. They're willing to take some risks, but they need that sort of that bridge. They need a bridge to everything. I'm like, yeah, let's jump and let's see what happens.
That's great. And would you put learning with growth? So obviously you're putting yourselves into situations for growth. Do you combine learning with that as well, or is that part of the whole growth thing? Or would you separate it?
Yeah. Learning's growth. Like learning.
Do you read much?
I hate reading.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I hate reading. I've read like 6 books in my life.
Wow.
And a few of those were in schools. I had to read them. But this is how much I hate reading. So in school, I would 16 hours before the assignment's due. Terrible. I would go to Google, like, oh, come on, Google, give me something, give me something, give me something, give me something. Try to get the synopsis of How to Kill a Mockingbird.
So your teachers loved you.
So that I could fudge the assignment. They all said the same thing. I said, Max, you got a lot of potential, but you just need to read more. I'm like, go away. So yeah, I hate reading. So, audiobooks is like, it's like, discovering fire to me. Like I can do audiobooks all day because I just don't like so when I was younger, I had astigmatism, where when you see something and you see like 2 of them. So reading is really annoying. But audiobooks, I can listen and like visualize and when I listen to an audiobook, I almost listen to it the way that someone would read, with like my full undivided attention. A lot of people like listen to audiobooks or podcasts and drive at the same time. I don't like that. That's because that doesn't make sense to me. You're doing 2 things badly. You're driving not that well, and you're listening not that well.
I've accounted to that. To that.
Maybe driving not the right example, just to be, cooking or something. I don't know. Yeah.
No, so I did, sorry, just to interrupt. So I used to listen to podcasts commuting on my motorcycle to Shoreditch every day in city traffic, and I actually thought it'd be dangerous. But actually, your brain, I did actually. If someone ran out in front of me, I'd literally shut off the audio and I'd basically, avoid the hazard. But I thought it would be dangerous. But that's driving a motorcycle, so you've got to be literally on the whole time. But it's amazing. Anyway, that was just my experience. So I'd share that with you.
Yeah. I used to have a motorbike as well. I'm not game enough for that. A few close calls my bike and then let it go.
Very wise. Yeah.
I'm very funny. I've got entrepreneur ADD like anyone else. I get ideas, bang, 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 want to do this, want to do that, want to do this, want to do that. But at the same time, I think what really counts and what really has the rubber hit the road is the ability to just lock in onto something, and you don't know that you can do that until you test yourself. So, you set a goal, and no matter how much you want to quit, you're just like, look, just try completing it, not because it's going to make you rich, but because then you teach yourself discipline, or you teach yourself to finish something that you said you're going to do, that you started. And that is why I think a lot of people could learn more. Definitely, like setting a goal. And because, for example, it took me 3 years to finish 6 years to finish my 3-year finance degree. And, the pass grade was 4. I graduated with 3.6, so just really bad at reading, really, really terrible student. And I quit like a million times. Yeah, I was actually put on probation, so the university sent me a letter saying, hey, Max, if you, if you fail one more, class, you get kicked out because you're basically taking the piss. You know, they didn't say those words, but that's what they meant, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, it's a wake up call. I don't want to, what. And then my brother had to talk to me, and he said, Max, you should finish your degree because, and then he taught me this idea. He said, not because you believe that you're going to actually use these stupid textbooks in the job that you're going to have, but because you would have completed something you said you were going to do, and the fact that it's hard makes it worth completing. Makes it worth getting under your belt. And then I was like, wow, crap, you're right. And that there's a lot of value in that. It's like that.
Yeah, there is
that muscle, that discipline, that whatever you call it. So then I finally did it. And guess what? Now it's unbelievable. Now I've been mentoring university kids for more than 10 years.
Okay.
And because I mentor so much, and because of my profile and whatever, and they search you on LinkedIn and things like that. Last year or the year before, I was actually asked to mentor executive MBA students from our university in a partnership MBA program with MIT in Boston.
Fantastic! Top draw, that is.
Yeah. So now I'm executive MBA mentor, and I completely don't believe in education. And the reason why I said yes is because I really want to give them the real world. And I give that to all of them. I'm like, yeah, guys, grades, whatever. Yes, grades. You can get grades. Grades great. I wish I had grades. I honestly do. Really, really do. Wish I loved reading. Wish. However, what I can give you is, how to actually deal with real life situations. Do you want to talk about that? And then, that's where my conversations always go into the soft skills. Yeah.
That's really good. I like that. Stick with itness, isn't it? It's completing. And actually, even for employers, it shows, I think the education system is very broken. It has its place, but you can demonstrate to employers, if you want to go the job route, that you can actually start something and finish and reach a certain standard, whatever that is. So it gives that stability. But yeah, it also helps with self-esteem, doesn't it? And your confidence, if you can actually finish something, even if it might not be, you don't have to. The grades are it's just another stepping stone, isn't it? Really.
The grades, like it's important to learn math and English and stuff like that. Like everyone needs a benchmark, right? Everyone needs a benchmark. But I do think that, like what you just said, the education system's broken. Society has moved. The education system was developed. It's 150 years old.
Yeah.
And we don't have the same society anywhere near what we had 150 years ago. There's a bit of a goal in the back of my head all the time. I don't usually talk about, where when I'm satisfied with business and I built what I wanted to build, and I move on to the next thing. I'd like to go back to Australia and run for Prime Minister, and just really pull those weeds out, right down to the roots, all the broken weeds. Like, for example, if when you make 100-year plan, for society, you have to factor in the children and the next generation and how they will fulfill your plan, because you can't fulfill a 100-year plan, right? You can't fulfill a 50-year plan, right? Then why aren't we putting all the attention and focus into what goes in the heads of children for the next 100 years? It just doesn't make sense to me. And here's an example. In society, we reward doctors, lawyers, bankers, or whoever, more or less the highest salaries. Why do we do that? Not because being a doctor, lawyer, or whatever is harder to do than other things, but because they add the most value to society, so to speak, right? That's why they're rewarded the most. It's value added to society.
Yeah. Okay.
The most. Now, when you think about a 100-year plan, is it not that educators add the most value to society, but they pay the least.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is that math? Is that just like an equation that no one's properly looking at, right? So as Prime Minister, I would love to get in and basically just rip the education system apart and start again. And you know, maybe one of the goals is, you know, it takes 8 years to be a doctor. It should take 10 years to be a teacher, and a teacher should be paid $500,000 or something, you know. And it's like, then we get, you know, operators, you know, real operators, you know, appropriately rewarded, passionate about what they do, because you only get that far if you are, you know, they're in it for the right reasons. You don't get through 10 years, you know, you don't get through 10 years of study just focus on the money. You don't. All those guys get weeded out at the 10-year mark, as an example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, let's see what happens to children or the future generation at that point. So that's, you know, obviously I'm very big picture. I haven't thought about any of the details or any of the ramifications or any where the money would come from or anything like that. But how does that idea, you know, how would that idea play out if it could work?
Yeah, actually, something sparked in my mind. If you look at the futures of the children that the teachers are, it's almost like if you had a 20-year bonus plan where, you know, depending on what your cohort of students actually ended up to do. So your pay is based on the value that your cohort of students does for society, or the value they create. And it might be that, okay, I agree, they need to be paid a lot more to attract the right talent into the education system, or certainly have more people from the real world actually teaching our kids. And teaching that growth mindset. But you could actually have a really cool pension plan, which is like, you know, you could make $1 million, you know, one of your kids. I mean, again, it's like, you know, how do you attract the best? But that's a really good thought. Really good thought. So I know we're kind of coming up to our hour. So if you could leave our listeners with any pearls of wisdom, any advice, what would that be?
Yeah, you know, I make this mistake so many times. It's so annoying every time I do it because I'm like, I know this. You know, if you haven't done something before, you know, if you haven't built a business before, if you haven't like you haven't actually done the thing, you know, you haven't driven a car before, don't just jump into a sports car. You know, if you haven't driven a motorbike before, don't just jump in on your own. If you haven't done something before, get someone to show you how. You know, so like I think to myself, I built a business before, so I can build this business, but it's a different business. You know, it's almost like I can rock climb. Now I can do backstroke. No, they're both sports, but they're different sports. You know, so if you haven't done something before, like just assume you have no idea what you're doing. You know, if you could just assume that and sort of humble yourself with that, you know, then you will waste so much less money and time and enjoy the process, and you feel safe and less stressed, because then you will start to think, you know, who could help you to know how, and it might cost money, they might not, but you know, even the free people that provide you surface level advice, they will, you know, help you from crashing into the first tree. You know, but you might crash into the 7th tree, right, in the car. But at least you won't crash into the first one, right? So it's like just you know, be humble and assume that you have no idea what you're doing. And like, look, here's a perfect example. You know, like all the really big entrepreneurs, like they all say the same thing. They all say, "Look, I'm dumb. I get smart people around me." Like it's everyone, you know. Or they all say, "I do this one thing, and I cover my gaps." You know, self-awareness, right?
I just said that earlier.
Like and you know, so I've got, you know, if you're a big picture person, you need an execution team, you know, and if you don't have the money for it, then solving the money is the first problem you need to solve. You know, not trying to guess execution. That's how you waste money. You know? Like that. It's that simple. And like money is an annoying problem to solve. I get it. When you don't have money and you don't have credit and all that sort of stuff. And you can hustle. You know, you could always hustle, but it'll be slow and painful. So just know what you're walking into. Slow and painful, or potentially less and enjoyable.
That's interesting. Actually, the Rich Dad Poor Dad book by Guy Kawasaki that you mentioned earlier, it does juxtapose the PAYE, so the employee route, where you basically just amass liabilities like your old man did with his 7 Series BMW, and that's the capitalism trap. And actually, that's the way we're kind of conditioned to want things. But actually, whereas the rich dad, he's all about investing and starting your own thing. I guess just investing, opposed to spending money on a BMW. He'll kind of encourages the reader to invest in something that would yield the money. But it takes time, and like you said, you have to start simple. But anyway, sorry, it just made me think of that.
Sorry, just one more thing that you said that. So I saw this this quick TikTok of Warren Buffett talking to Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos basically said to him, Warren, I don't get it. Because Jeff Bezos is like the definition of objective. Like, he's like a robot. He's the way he operates his business. He's like facts, no emotion, bang, 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 bang.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys in finance are like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning that. So he said to Warren, Warren, I don't get it. Like, you've worked it out. Like, and what you say is pretty simple. Just invest in companies you think will be here 100 years from now. Like, isn't that simple? And Warren laughed. He's obviously so sharp because everything that you say to him, he laughs and he gives like a side angle that you just never would have thought of, right?
Yeah.
He does that a lot. And he said, Jeff, it's simple. Not everyone wants to get rich slow. So he's
Not
like,
everyone wants to
get rich slow. He's like, all I've worked out is how to get rich slow. Now, not everyone wants that. That's why not everyone does it. And so, Warren, he's got a 100-year plan, and it's that simple. And but it's but it's not sexy. It's not sexy waiting 100 years. It's not. You're not going to be in the Lamborghini at 25 years old. You're not going to have the plane at 35 years old or whatever, but you will have it, thinking 100 years at a time. But it's not sexy. So, Warren's a perfect example. So investing obviously aligns with his values so much. He actually doesn't even care about the money. He just has so much fun, sort of deep diving into companies and imagining where they'll be 100 years from now. So he's in it for the right reasons. You know what I mean? Like, he's not, if he was in it for the money, he would have lost patience, but he's got the patience because he's in love with the patient game.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I think he also reads 8 hours a day or something crazy. So he's just an avid, like, every day. I think literally he reads for most of his day to learn. It's absolutely incredible. I read that autobiography, Snowball. It's like 800 pages thick. I remember it's a big one, but it was a really interesting one. It's amazing. But yeah, very different ways to look at things. Trying to think. So as we wrap up, what are you working on right now? And as far as Rocket Pod, how can is there anything we can do to help your current projects? So can you just give us a little bit on the Wine and Whiskey and the Family Office Association, and just kind of get us an idea of what you're working on, and our listeners and us can kind of keep an eye out, see if we can look out and help add value where we can.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate that, and likewise. So, so basically we help people to invest in wine and whiskey. Now, I manage Australia as a region. Anywhere in the world, we can have a conversation because we've got Zoom and things like that. I also manage our wine and whiskey investment fund. It's the first of its kind to have both wine and whiskey in Delaware, basically actively trading the bottles. And the methodology is really, really simple. Imagine like $100, £100, $100, whatever, bottle of wine in front of you. It's 10 years old. It's taken 10 years to get to that point. It takes 10 seconds to open, right? So basically what we do is we essentially buy it 4, 5, 6 years younger, say at 30 cents on the dollar, because it hasn't gotten up to that peak value yet. So we buy it when no one wants it. We take it off the market, and then we sell it back into the market at a premium when it's reached its peak. So there's like scarcity adds the value. The fact that it's age adds the value. And then there's like wild cards, like it's won awards, or, Italian's big right now, or whatever. Or for example, you might get some good press or something, so any wild cards. So that's the ethos, and I love it because it is as predictable as it gets, in my opinion, in terms of investments and value creation, because we're not betting on the price of the house keep going up in value. We're betting in the fact that the intrinsic ethos of that you can't cheat time, adds, percentages to the value of this asset, whether it's wine or whiskey. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, I'd love to have a chat. Our mantra is to basically educate the market. So podcasts like this, like I'd love to be on your podcast if that's of interest to you. And the other thing that I do is I manage the Australian Family Office Association. So what a family office is, basically, it's usually an individual or family or business that has achieved about $30 million or more, $50 million or more in net wealth. What that means is that they have so much money and wealth and assets that they need to start hiring people to manage that full time. Otherwise, they could lose opportunities, or they could be eaten up by inflation and things like that. So what we do is we help to connect those families with other families. They love that because they, you can imagine when you're worth about 50 million, everyone's trying to get money out of you. Everyone's trying to, it's not easy for you to meet peers, not easy for you to meet people that you can trust. It's not easy for you to go into anywhere without someone trying to rip you off. Like, it's just not easy. So you want to meet trusted lawyers, accountants, trusted this, trusted that, that have your best interests at heart. So we help to connect that, whether it's lawyers, accountants, fund managers, investments, other businesses as well. They love investing in businesses. I'll give you an example. There's one family office guy, I think he's worth about $1 billion. And he invested in one of our other clients who've got a project in making films. So he invests like $3 million in a film. The film does 10 million. The guy gets a return, and then everyone gets paid, right? Really simple business model. That's how the film industry works, by the way. It's really interesting. And the $1 billion guy spoke to the guy that's running the deal, the operator, and he said, I have been a billionaire for 30 years, and never, ever, ever have I actually met the person who's operating the business that I'm investing in. I've always gone through banks or wealth managers and stuff, and they always keep you once removed, right? Because those banks or whoever, they take 2, 3, 4, 5% fees in between before the money gets to the operator. And then the guy said, "Oh, well, I'm really happy to have you here." And then the guy said, well, we're filming in Australia next month. Do you want to come? You paid.
You paid for it.
You paid for it, right? and this wasn't my deal, but I heard of it from a friend, and it's a beautiful story. And the guy said, "Yeah, I'd love to come. I never get invited to things. People just take my money. People just take my money, give me back more. But if I could see, like, I love movies. That's why I invested, right? So now he's going to be there eating popcorn, sitting in a director's chair, watching his investment, in the operations. How cool is that?
That's very cool.
So direct stuff like that is very hot, very, very hot.
So you're kind of developing an ecosystem, I guess, and like you're matchmakers. You're matching the family office together. But you're bringing in other potential partners. Fantastic. It sounds really interesting. On the wine and whiskey front, are you sourcing wines or whiskeys from any particular locations, or is it you pretty much ubiquitous?
So we love being agnostic, so we want the best of the best no matter where it's from. There's wines that we sponsor from like China, from like Greece, some we're looking at Lebanon, Spain, not just French and Italian, things like that. Whiskey isn't just Scotch whiskey or Irish whiskey, it's also American, not just from Kentucky, some from Missouri, and things like that, and of course, Japanese. So the best of the best, because just like, any investment, you don't want to be all your eggs in one basket. You want to be across all the best baskets you can find, and that's what we do.
Fantastic. No, well, thanks for that. It's fascinating. So final question. I know you don't read books, so I want to ask you what your favorite book is. If there's anyone that you would love to meet for coffee, who would that be? Curious.
Oh yeah. I always get stuck with this question, because I think my most authentic answer is probably myself 10 years from now.
Okay.
And it's like, hey Max, what could I have learned faster? Like just slap me where I need to be slapped. Where am I making mistakes? What could I have learned faster? How could I have grown faster? Where should I have been more patient? Not just all about speed, but how could I have made my life richer sooner? What attachment could I have let go of? I'd love to look into the soul of that.
I like that. It makes me think. I've just picked up a bit of. I was sharing it with my teenage daughters last night. Basically, the heart is quite a selfish organ in the sense that it takes all the oxygen first before it distributes it to the rest of our body.
Oh wow!
But if the heart didn't take everything for itself, it wouldn't have anything to give, and actually you would die. So by the same token, if you truly love yourself and are truly helping yourself first, then we just have more to give to other people. So I like that coffee analogy. That's definitely unique, and I think we need to sometimes, as humans, take a bit more time for ourselves, spiritually, emotionally, our bodies, everything else. So I think that's kind of that was kind of the bit of wisdom that I learned this week that I've kind of shared with my family, but I thought I'd share it here too. So
yeah. I'll share one more thing. Obviously we're both very passionate right now. So I was on a date and this girl, really intelligent girl, asking me, like, just drilling me. I said, yeah, great, I love this. We get to know each other really fast. And she said to me, what's the one thing you could improve, or one thing you could what's the one thing you didn't like about yourself that you want to be better, or whatever, right? And I was very close to making a joke and saying, I wish I was taller, because I'm a very optimal 5'6".
We've actually never met in person, so I have no idea how tall you are. It's quite funny. That's why I laughed. I didn't laugh because you were short.
No, it's all right. Optimum 5'6".
I like it.
Yeah.
It's a positive spin. That's good.
Yeah. And so I said, look, honestly, I really want to master filling my own cup. I want every single day of my life, my batteries to be full, a smile on my face, peace in my mind, calmness in my body. I want my cup to, how you feel straight after a holiday? Like, I want to feel like that all the time. Why do we burn the candle out, then plant a new candle? That's stupid, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I was like, I want the cup to be full, batteries to be full, skin to be glowing all the time, every day, whatever I need to do to make that happen. Work more, work less, more money, less money, whatever it is. I want that. Yeah.
Very good. I like it. Brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute delight having you on. That's the right word. It has. It's been fun. It's been really, really insightful. You've been a really good sport, and thank you for your openness. It's really good. So great. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I am addicted to LinkedIn. I'm probably the only Maxwell Nee on LinkedIn. Maxwell spelt like Maxwell Smart. Nee as in November Echo NEE. If you search me on there, add me. I'm addicted, so you'll get me.
Brilliant.
Or you can Google. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Take care.
Nice. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Rocket Pod. When you get a moment, we'd love it if you could jump over to whatever platform you're listening to Rocket Pod on and leave a quick review. We love all your messages. It helps us get exposure to inspire and share more stories like this one with Max today. A couple of key takeaways. I think it was really interesting that Max continually puts himself into uncomfortable situations to make him grow as a human being. I love the fact that he prioritizes freedom over money. So, how can he live the best life, create more time to do the things that he loves? He called out relationships as another priority, and creating opportunities to have experiences. It just makes us more interesting and I guess more effective because we're not bored. So, yep, loved our chat. Thank you, Max, for your wisdom today. Thank you all for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Have a great week ahead. Bye-bye.